Hey, did you know that Egypt used to be a Christian country? Most people don't know that. But before Islam, Egypt was a Christian country. Now, it was under the rule of Rome, and they suffered terrible persecution. Because why? They wouldn't bow to the gods of the Romans. When the Muslim warriors came centuries later, the patriarch of Egypt basically gave up without a fight, because he's thinking anybody has got to be better than these Romans. And that was unfortunate because that has ushered in 1,400 years of persecution. So for all that time, for almost 1,900 years, Christians have lived in persecution in Egypt, probably longer than any other people on earth. Egypt is currently ruled by a military dictator, al-Sisi, and he says a lot of the right things. So to the West, it's like, oh my gosh, this guy's so much better for the Christians. But it's all a lot of talk, because in the end, he's also a politician. And Egypt as a people are very fundamentalist Muslims. And so they believe in persecution, they believe it's right. Sisi basically is a politician, so he lets the Muslims, the radical Muslims, have their way with Christians. And so things are getting worse. So just last Friday, a young Christian man was gunned down at work by masked extremists. And a few weeks ago, a Coptic priest was stabbed numerous times, stabbed to death by an extremist. And recently, 9 believers were arrested. What do you think they were arrested for? Well, their church had burned down, and so they were peacefully protesting, just asking the government to let them rebuild the church. And this, they typically won't. The government will say, oh, the church is destroyed, you can't rebuild it. Slowly trying to strangle Christianity. So look, those are just 3 snapshots. There's lots of other incidents, but persecution is getting worse.
Condemning deadly terror attacks on churches in Egypt. It calls them barbaric. 2 suicide bombings killed more than 40 people on one of the holiest days on the Christian calendar. More than 100 others were wounded. The bombs in Tanta and Alexandria blew up during Sunday services just a few hours apart. ISIS has claimed responsibility. Mark Phillips is following the latest developments from London. Mark, good morning.
Good morning. Well, Christians make up about 10% of the Egyptian population and have been frequent targets of jihadi bombers. But this double attack seems to have had another motive besides mass murder. It seemed designed to shake the strongman government of Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, which has promised security but has clearly been unable to provide it.
The Palm Sunday service in the St. George's Church in Tanta, north of Cairo in the Nile Delta, had attracted a large congregation of worshipers, among them a bomber. The carnage wasn't over. A few hours later at St. Mark's Church in Alexandria, a man with a blue sweater over his shoulder is denied entry and told to go through Both bombings appeared to be suicide attacks, and responsibility for them was claimed by the so-called Islamic State.
For the beleaguered Christian minority in Egypt, this was the single deadliest day in decades.
It has been a horrific time for Christians in northern Egypt. The terror group ISIS unleashed a wave of deadly attacks after announcing that Christians are their, quote, favorite prey. Now hundreds of believers are fleeing for their lives. More than 150 Egyptian Christian families fled the northern town of El Arish in the last week after ISIS militants shot and killed at least 7 Christians. Many families, like Yaqubi Shaks, who escaped with little of their possessions, are now sheltering in Ismailia, a small town some 75 miles east of Egypt's capital city, Cairo.
We left all the apartments, mine, my elder sons, and his brothers. I can tell you that I brought absolutely nothing with me, but thank God we made it out alive.
ISIS has declared Egyptian Christians their favorite prey. The group released a video saying its fighters were under God's orders to kill every infidel and warned of more attacks. Said Sama Abdel Fawzi wasn't taking any chances and fled the Sinai after ISIS fighters barged into his uncle's home, shot him and his son dead.
Last Thursday, my cousin went to open the door after he heard someone knocking. He found masked terrorists with a pistol who took him inside and shot him in the head. When my aunt heard the sound of his body falling on the floor, she came from her room and yelled, "What did you do to my son?" They took her out to the street barefooted and in her pajamas, then went back for her husband and killed him.
Egypt's Coptic Christians are 10% of the population and often targets of Muslim radicals. Many of them fear the Egyptian government is doing little to protect them.
There's no life for Christians there. They are thirsty for the blood of any Christian. So there is no way for any Christian to live in El Arish. They were pretty clear when they said, "We won't leave any Christian in peace." They want an Islamic state.
In December, ISIS carried out a devastating attack on a Cairo church, killing 30 people. The group has accused Egyptian Christians of insulting Islam and says more attacks will befall them.
Welcome to this edition of Christian World News, everyone. I'm Wendy Griffith. Thanks for joining us. Well, imagine seeing your husband, brother, or father brutally killed by religious fanatics. That's what happened to many families when ISIS executed 21 Egyptian Christians in February. While the horrible video led to worldwide outrage, some families are happy that the martyrs kept their faith. And as Gary Lane found out, they're ready to forgive.
I was very proud that my husband stood firm in his faith and that he didn't deny Jesus.
That surprising reaction is happening 150 miles south of Cairo, in the village of El Aour. Residents there honor the sacrifice of 21 Egyptians brutally murdered last February by ISIS. Their pictures are prominently displayed in the sanctuary of Virgin Mary Church. 13 attended this church. The martyrs left behind family members, like 23-year-old Mariam Farhat. She became a widow when the militants beheaded her husband Malik Ibrahim in Libya. She first learned of his murder when she saw this now infamous video on local television.
We were very sad for the first 2 days, but we hadn't seen the video. When we saw them in the video calling to Jesus, we were very comforted.
And that's why Miriam and other families say they are now joyful, not sad. Babawi Alham's brother Samuel was among those killed.
We were always praying that God would make them steadfast in their faith. We were very happy with what they said on the video, "Jesus Christ, have mercy on us." When we found out they had been killed for being Christian, we were very comforted because these were God's children and He took them.
Although Samuel's wife and children now live without a husband and father, his family told CBN News their faith is stronger. They forgive the jihadists and even pray for ISIS.
I pray for them that God may open their heart and they may know the truth and know that what they do is wrong and then do the right thing. Jesus told us to forgive every sin, and we forgive them, and we hope that they can come to know Jesus.
Christians here in Egypt are encouraged to know they're not alone. Back in the United States, there's a growing movement among Christians there to demonstrate unity and solidarity with those who are suffering for Christ in the Middle East.
What we thought was, how could we identify and stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters in Christ who are being brutalized around the world for their Christian faith? What tangible thing could we do? What practical thing could we do?
Immediately, orange jumpsuits came to mind. Mahoney and others launched the #Orange Jumpsuit campaign. The movement has expanded to orange scarves, sweaters, and ribbons.
It's to remind our brothers and sisters that we love them and we're standing with them, and to remind decision makers here in America and across the globe, the free nations of the world, we cannot be silent on this issue.
Mahoney says the response has been amazing. Non-Christians have joined in as well.
A Jewish rabbi to stand in solidarity with persecuted Christians is dyeing his beard orange, which I think is incredible, and I can't wait to see that.
Miriam was encouraged after she viewed cell phone photos of Americans wearing orange.
May the Lord make their love grow and grow. We are very happy with their love. We don't deserve their love.
Mahoney says every 5 minutes around the world a Christian is killed for his faith.
People don't understand the kind of barbarism and brutality they are going through. And you know, when I visit persecuted Christians in the Middle East, there's one thing they always ask. It doesn't matter if it's Iraq, Syria, wherever it might be, it's this: please remember us.
And wearing orange on the job or at church helps people remember them.
I think people need to understand that if we do not act quickly, the public expression of Christianity may be extinguished in the Middle East. As Elie Wiesel, Holocaust survivor and Nobel Peace Prize winner, says, We must always take sides. Silence only helps the oppressor, never the oppressed.
Miriam also has a message for others who have suffered or still face danger from ISIS.
Don't be sad or cry. God will support us all. He will fulfill His promise that He is the Father of the orphans and the widows.
Gary Lane.